Hello, you hottie hot hotties, and welcome to Wild&T. My name is Tawny.
Tara, Tony,
And Teddy.
thanks for joining everybody to today's episode. Just a little review. We wanted to talk about a book club that we started just among us sisters and our mom, and then a good TikTok trend that we have found rather entertaining, and then a fun advice segment. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we this a couple of months ago decided to do a book club among like the four of us girls and our mom, and really it was initiated by Teddy, why don't you tell us what started this book club?
Yeah, it's mostly because going to college, I read a lot of books for class, and then ever since I graduated, I haven't picked up like a single book. so I knew that my sisters and my mom, they all read books, and I felt kind of left out, and also like I wanted to read books. So I was thinking, why don't we just get together and do a book club? So I tentatively reached out super nonchalantly and was like, "It's a stupid idea, but if you guys are interested, let's do this." And then everyone was like, "Yeah!" So,
And we
which is really cool.
enthusiastically responded to your tentative suggestion.
Yes, yes.
I know it was like the fastest group chat responses we've ever had. I think we're all like, yeah, book club, let's read more books.
Since some of us read like we breathe.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm on
It's
3 books right now.
That's awesome.
ever since I've like accessed a good like audio book app, that's really how I do most of my books, and it just makes it so much easier just to get things done while enjoying a good book. Because before, you're literally up till 4 a.m. finishing this book because you can't put it down and you don't have time the next day to read it.
Uh-huh.
I think the majority of my book reading before book club, though, had been books I'd already read and Louis L'Amour. Louis L'Amour is pretty much the only new books I was reading.
I think my funniest book club moment so far is how I only suggested one book, and it was really really good. It's called Dangerous Love by Chad Ford. He was one of my professors. Oh wait, no, just kidding. I didn't recommend that one, but I will recommend that one. But the other one that I recommended was something I read in college called Three Cups of Tea by Greg Mortensen. And it's very, very deep. It's a very good, like educational and also interesting read. And our mom was like, wow, Teddy reads such deep things. When in reality, ever since I haven't had to read books for college, I only read like retellings of fairy tales. so it's
Teddy will
very, very
choose like
light.
her one book a year is deep and long because this book was long and
It was
deep.
long. And it was very like detailed. And it was very
Tough.
interesting too. Like it was a very interesting book. But at one point I was like, nothing's happening. Because it was just like
You're
step
saying a
by
lot of
step by
words, but
step.
not really talking about anything. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was really funny because I accidentally bought the youth edition of that book first, and I got it, and I was like, "No, this is wrong. I need to get the one everybody else is reading." So I bought the regular edition, and what cracked me up about that is the very first sentence in the regular edition is this long description of this beautiful mountain, and then in the youth version, it's like there was a mountain.
We all
That
should
had
have gotten
pictures in
the
it too.
but that's not the book we had for this last book club. But it is interesting, like, no matter the book, we definitely are able to have a good discussion about it. Even if it is like a fairy tale or a short story, we've managed to have pretty good discussions. So our book club book this last for September, right, was A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. And it was a very heartwarming, also sad, but
Heartbreaking.
good ending book.
So I actually suggested this one, and it was funny because the reason I read it in the first place was I saw a video clip of the movie on TikTok, and like just this little video clip of like the main character, the little boy in the book, and like him just having like this full on like heartbreaking meltdown, and I was like bawling watching this video clip, and I was like, I have to read this book. So I read the book, and then when we had the suggestions, I suggested it for the book club, and like I did warn everybody. I was like, it is very sad. It is a very sad book. So I made that very clear before we read it as well.
Like,
Yeah.
luckily, it wasn't like Bridge to Terabithia sad, but it could be. It could be depending on, how caught off guard you might be and your emotional state while reading it. So
Definitely your
those are
emotional state
contributive.
while reading it.
Those are contributive factors for sure. But it was very sad, but it was really interesting because it was I one of the things, so I listened to this book on uh, Audible, and uh at the very end they have like a interview with the author. And so I found it super interesting because something that the author said was the main thing that the book was really about was just the fear of loss, because he goes through these stages of grief before he's even lost the thing that he's grieving. And so, but he was so, afraid of losing this thing that it was interesting how like the monster worked in his life and in his subconscious really. So that was really interesting. And then Tony showed us a clip of the movie that was heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. So now we know that we will never watch the movie.
Yeah. Sometimes, for different reasons, it is not worth watching movies after reading books, You just don't want there's sometimes you just don't want to cross that line. But this next book for October is one that we decided to read for this next month because the movie's coming out in November, which is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the Hunger Games series, pre-Hunger Games series, and we're super excited about this one because they are coming out with the movie, which comes out in November. And this book is so good. I think so far only Tawny and our mom haven't read it, but it's worthwhile.
I just got it, so I'm really excited to because okay, I'm not gonna lie, I've been dragging my feet on this and going back and forth whether or not I want to watch the movie because the idea of it being about Snow and his life, I'm like, that sounds boring. what can we talk about? Like, what do I really want to know? Like, sounds like his life growing up. That sounds so boring, but I know it's probably not like that, so I'm excited to read it. Something that I've really loved about this book club is the opportunity that I've had to kind of build my physical book library because I have the like e-reader or apps on my phone or whatever that I read it that way, and I just grew up having books. Like I got grounded for reading all the time because I just always had my nose in a book. And so it's been really exciting for me to be able to order every single one of these books that we do for book club because I know that they're good books because at least one of us has read it. And so that's been fun for me to be able to just kind of build my little library up, and I've got it in my guest room. So I'm like, ooh, any guests that come can read my books.
The buildup of the dream library. And like that can be your section of like book club books,
I could put like Tony's
do a
collection,
section of
Tony's
that.
collection.
Yeah. Because everybody, we know ever since Beauty and the Beast, most of us have wanted a dream library. That will always be a dream for sure.
Absolutely. And can we also talk about the ridiculousness of being grounded for reading? It just turns out.
I don't remember
Mom
ever being
couldn't get us
grounded
out
for
of the room.
reading. That's so
Well, that's because you did your homework and I didn't. And so I got grounded for reading instead of doing my homework.
Yes, I did do my homework and then I read all night. Yep, yep. I remember one of the growing up, I was reading the 6th Harry Potter book, which is obviously very tragic. and I was in my room. It was like 11:30 at night, reading, just bawling my eyes out about, spoiler alert, Dumbledore dying. And Dad walks in to use the bathroom because there was a bathroom in my room. I don't know if someone was using the other bathroom, but he walks in and I look up, just tears just streaming down my face, and he's just like,
No, he already knew because he had already
knew.
read it by then. Remember, he bought himself
Yeah,
his
no,
own
yeah.
copy so that he could read the whole thing without being disturbed by us and made us fight over the other copy.
Yep.
So he read it the fastest because he read it in like 1.5 days, like these thick
Yeah.
Harry Potter books.
We would get, by the end of the Harry Potter book series,
We had
Dad
to
would get
read.
like 2 or 3 copies.
We got 3 copies for the
For-
very last book. I remember.
for our family to read, and no, for sure. I think definitely we got our egg-headedness from Dad. He has all of the Lewis L'Amour books, and and he's always been a fan of reading. So has Mom. Mom has
Yeah.
definitely been a fan of reading. They just have
Mom
different
always has a
that's
book
different
on the
burner.
back burner for sure. And she's part of her own book club where she lives. And so it's funny. I'm sure she enjoys like having the 2 different types of book clubs because the one she's with, they really like to keep it a lot more lighthearted. And then us, it's just like all of our different experiences and like book likes and stuff. And it's very interesting because I know that I myself go through phases of reading a lot and then not reading at all. But I always can appreciate when I find a new series that is just well written. I think that's one of the things that I look for the most is something that's well written that enhances my knowledge and helps me develop more as I'm reading, as I'm enjoying a good story and like that.
That has been one of the biggest challenges of like growing up and like growing up reading, just like reading constantly because like mom would take us to the library all the time, like every week during the summers and stuff. And we were just like constantly reading. And when I was younger, I could pick up just about anything and I'd just read it. And then I go through college, and then on the other side of college, I just like I will pick up a book and I will read the first chapter and I'll be like, I can't.
Yeah,
The
you're
way they're
like, I
writing,
cannot
like
keep up with this. It's cringy. Like your standard of like writing has increased. I know that Tony and I have talked about that a lot. It's just
Yeah.
like, pretty much the standard now is Jane Austen, essentially. It's like if it's worse than that, if it's worse writing than that, it's a no-go.
pretty much. And I'm just like, I will go to bookstores and I will pick up a dozen different books and I will read the back and like the synopsis, and I'll open it to like the middle of a book and just like read a page. And like to get me to actually buy a book now is like really difficult.
Yeah,
If I
it's
don't
so
pick it up.
scary out there. I don't know why it's so much different now. I don't know if it's because I've been out of the game for so long and I just don't remember what authors are worth reading. And that's the other thing. When you find a good author, I devour every single book that they've ever written and ever will read for the rest of their
Exactly.
lives. Yeah, no.
I had like adopted this grandma out here and her granddaughter writes. And she was telling me, she's like, the first few books are a little bit rough, but she really does get better. So I'm like, okay, I appreciate that. She has probably like 4 or 5 series of books, and I've been pretty pleased with them. I mean, I don't think it's like top notch, but they're entertaining and she does write pretty well. And so that's kept me a sidebar, like reading entertain from our book club lately.
Speaking of that, so my best friend, she also is a writer, and so she had sent me a book one time that she had written, just through like Google, and it was looked really good. And for whatever reason, she just had a really hard time getting it up and going. But I really enjoyed this book. But I mean, even growing up too, like we were all saying, we've all read like there was nothing else in the world that we had to do, no other responsibilities, right? And that was part of the problem why we got grounded. Like I remember so many times just laying there reading my book and mom be like, Tanya, I told you to go take out the trash, or